In the heart of Atlanta, Georgia, there lived a woman named Maya. She was a single mother raising 3 beautiful children, 2 daughters and a son. Life wasn't easy for her, but she worked hard every day to give her kids the best life possible. As a nurse at a busy hospital, Maya spent long hours on her feet caring for patients and making sure they felt better. But no matter how tired she got, she always came home with a smile for her kids. Maya had one dream that kept her going through all the tough days, a dream of owning a car. Not just any car, but a reliable one that could take her family places safely. With public transport being unpredictable and often unsafe late at night after her shifts, having a car would change everything for them. It would mean more freedom, fewer worries about missed school events or doctor appointments, and maybe even little weekend trips to create happy memories. Finally, after months of saving every extra penny from overtime work, Maya decided it was time. She'd been looking at cars online during her breaks, imagining what it would feel like to drive her own vehicle. One sunny Saturday morning, she woke up early, dressed neatly, and packed snacks for her kids. The excitement in the house was electric as she told them where they were headed, a car dealership. The kids cheered. Her youngest, a curious 5-year-old boy, kept asking if they were getting the big shiny car he saw in pictures. Maya laughed, telling him they'd see. Deep down, though, she hoped today would be the day their lives changed for the better. When they arrived at the dealership, Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The place was massive, filled with rows of gleaming cars under bright lights. Salespeople walked around shaking hands with customers and showing off different models. At first glance, everyone seemed friendly. A tall man wearing a crisp suit approached Maya with a warm smile. "Good morning. How can I assist you today?" he asked politely. Maya introduced herself and explained that she was interested in buying a car. The salesperson nodded, leading her toward some sedans and SUVs while her kids trailed behind, peeking inside each car like it was a treasure chest. They stopped near a sleek silver sedan, its surface sparkling in the sunlight. Maya's eyes lit up. This was it, the perfect car. It wasn't too flashy, but it looked sturdy, practical, and exactly what her family needed. She ran her fingers along the smooth metal, letting herself imagine driving it home. Her daughter tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, this is the one," Maya agreed silently. Turning to the salesperson, she said confidently, "I'd like to know more about this model. Can we talk about pricing and financing options?" The salesperson's demeanor shifted slightly when Maya mentioned financing. His once bright smile dimmed just a fraction, and his tone became less enthusiastic. Still, Maya didn't think much of it. Maybe he was just having an off moment. He led her to a small office inside the dealership, promising someone would explain everything in detail. As they sat down, Maya pulled out documents she'd prepared, proof of her steady income, her excellent credit score, and bank statements showing her savings. She laid them on the table proudly, ready to show she was serious about this purchase. But instead of admiration, the loan officer across the desk gave her a skeptical look. "Are you sure this is within your budget?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of doubt. Maya blinked, surprised by the question. "Yes," she replied firmly. "My finances are in order and I've saved specifically for this." But the officer wasn't convinced. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "These kinds of cars are usually out of reach for people in certain situations," he said slowly, his words laced with judgment. Maya froze, realizing what he meant. Her heart sank as the reality hit her. He was doubting her ability to afford the car based on stereotypes, not facts. Despite the sting of his words, Maya stayed calm. She pointed to her documents again, reiterating her qualifications. But the more she spoke, the colder the atmosphere became. Other staff members started hovering nearby, exchanging glances and whispering among themselves. Maya noticed their body language shift, from curiosity to discomfort, almost as if they wanted her to leave. Then, something small but significant happened. Her youngest child, eager to explore, accidentally knocked over a stand holding brochures. The loud clatter drew everyone's attention. Within seconds, the dealership manager rushed over, his face red with irritation. Without even checking what had happened, he snapped, "I think it's best if you leave now." Security guards appeared out of nowhere, standing close enough to intimidate but far enough to avoid direct confrontation. Maya felt humiliated, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Her children clung to her side, sensing her distress. Gathering her papers and her kids, she stood up, fighting back tears. As they walked out of the dealership, Maya promised herself she wouldn't let this moment define her. Little did she know this experience would spark something much bigger than she ever imagined. As Maya walked out of the dealership with her children, the weight of what had just happened pressed heavily on her shoulders. The bright sunshine outside felt mocking, like it didn't care about the storm brewing inside her. Her youngest son, still holding her hand, looked up at her and asked innocently, "Mom, why did that man tell us to go away?" Maya forced a small smile, not wanting to let her kids see how much the situation hurt her. "Sometimes people make mistakes," she said softly, choosing her words carefully. "But we're okay, sweetheart. We'll figure this out together." Inside, though, she was anything but okay. The sting of being treated unfairly lingered, and for the first time in years, she felt tears welling up in her eyes. The car ride home was quiet. Normally, her kids would chatter excitedly about school or their favorite cartoons, but today, they seemed to sense something was wrong. Even her usually talkative 12-year-old daughter sat silently, staring out the window. Maya tried to distract herself by thinking about work, the next shift, the patients she'd care for. But nothing could erase the memory of the cold stares and dismissive tone from the dealership staff. When they finally got home, Maya sat down. At the kitchen table, her mind racing. She replayed the scene over and over again, trying to understand why things had gone so wrong. Was it because she didn't dress fancy enough? Or maybe because she came in with 3 kids instead of alone? No matter how hard she thought about it, one thing became painfully clear. The way they treated her wasn't fair. It wasn't based on who she was as a person or even her ability to afford the car. It was something deeper, something rooted in prejudice. Her frustration grew as she realized this wasn't just about her. It was about all the other people who might have faced similar treatment. What if someone else, someone without her determination or resources, had been in her shoes? Would they have walked away feeling defeated, too scared to speak up? That evening, after putting her kids to bed, Maya called her older sister. Her sister was sharp-witted and always full of advice. More importantly, she worked as a journalist covering stories about social justice, so she understood how systems sometimes failed people like Maya. When her sister answered the phone, Maya's voice trembled as she recounted the day's events. At first, her sister listened quietly, letting Maya vent her anger and sadness. Then, when Maya finished, her sister spoke firmly. "You know what this is, don't you?" she asked. "This isn't just about you walking into a dealership. This is discrimination, plain and simple. And if you stay silent, they'll keep doing this to others." Her words struck a chord with Maya. For so long, she'd been taught to pick her battles to avoid making waves. But now, sitting alone in her dimly lit kitchen, she realized staying quiet wasn't an option anymore. If she didn't stand up for herself, who would? And more importantly, how many other families were being turned away simply because of how they looked or where they came from? Her sister suggested they document everything. "Write down exactly what happened," she urged. "Take screenshots of your financial documents. Save any emails or messages related to the visit. We need proof." Maya nodded, grabbing a pen and paper. As she wrote, the anger bubbling inside her began to transform into something else, resolve. She wouldn't let this incident slide unnoticed. The next step was sharing her story online. Her sister encouraged her to post about her experience on social media, tagging local news outlets and activists who focused on issues of inequality. "People need to hear this," her sister insisted. "And trust me, once they do, they'll rally behind you." Maya hesitated at first. Putting herself out there meant opening herself up to judgment, criticism, and possibly backlash. What if people didn't believe her? What if they dismissed her as overly sensitive or looking for attention? But then she remembered the faces of her children, their confusion and disappointment when they left the dealership, and she knew she couldn't stay silent. Late that night, after double-checking her notes and attaching photos of her financial documents, Maya hit post. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before she clicked send. Almost immediately, notifications started pouring in. Friends and family were the first to respond, offering support and encouragement. "You've got this," one friend commented. "Don't back down." By morning, the post had gained traction beyond her immediate circle. Strangers began commenting, sharing their own experiences of discrimination at car dealerships. Some recounted instances where they were denied service despite having perfect credit. Others talked about salespeople talking down to them or refusing to show them certain models altogether. Each comment fueled Maya's determination. She wasn't alone in this fight. Her phone buzzed constantly throughout the day, lighting up with messages of solidarity. One message, however, stood out among the rest. It was from a prominent activist known for advocating against systemic racism. "Your story needs to be heard," the message read. "Let's make sure it reaches the right people." Maya's heart skipped a beat. Could this really be happening? Just hours ago, she felt powerless, humiliated even. Now her voice was reaching corners she never imagined. Encouraged by the growing support, Maya decided to take things further. With her sister's help, she drafted a formal complaint to the corporate headquarters of the dealership chain. They included every detail of her experience, along with evidence of her eligibility for the car she wanted. Before sending the email, Maya took a deep breath. This was it, the moment she stepped fully into the role of advocate. Whether she liked it or not, her story was no longer just hers. It belonged to everyone who had ever been treated unfairly because of the color of their skin or their socioeconomic status. As she clicked send, she whispered to herself, "Let's see how they handle this." Within hours, the dealership's executives became aware of the viral post. Panic spread through their ranks as they scrambled to contain the PR disaster. Calls were made, meetings were held, and plans were drawn up, all while Maya waited patiently, knowing the ball was now in their court. Whatever happened next, she was ready. The next morning, Maya woke up to a flurry of notifications on her phone. Her post had gone viral overnight, spreading far beyond her expectations. People from all over the country were sharing her story, commenting on it, and tagging influential figures in the process. Some praised her courage for speaking out, while others shared their own painful experiences of discrimination at car dealerships. The sheer volume of responses was overwhelming, but not in a bad way. Her sister called early that day, her voice buzzing with excitement. "You won't believe this," she said before Maya could even say hello. "A major civil rights attorney just reached out. They want to take your case pro bono." Maya froze, gripping the phone tightly. Pro bono meant free legal help, something she hadn't dared to hope for. She listened intently as her sister explained that the attorney specialized in cases involving racial bias and unfair treatment. This was someone who could fight for justice on a much bigger scale than Maya ever imagined possible. But there was more. "And guess what else?" her sister continued, barely containing her enthusiasm. "Someone else saw your post, an executive producer at CNN. They're interested in doing a segment about your experience." Maya's heart raced. A national news outlet? That sounded like something out of a movie, not real life. For a moment, fear crept in. What if people criticized her? What if the dealership tried to twist the story and make her look like the bad guy? But then she remembered why she'd posted in the first place. Not just for herself, but for everyone who deserved fairness and respect. Her sister reassured her, reminding her how important it was to shine a light on these kinds of injustices. "This isn't just about you anymore," she said firmly. "It's about making sure no one else has to go through what you did. You're standing up for all of us." With renewed determination, Maya agreed to move forward. Together, they drafted a detailed timeline of events, including every interaction at the dealership, every document she'd shown them, and every dismissive comment made by the staff. They also included screenshots of her financial records, proof that she was more than qualified to buy the car she wanted. It felt empowering to lay everything out so clearly, turning her pain into evidence that couldn't be ignored. Later that afternoon, Maya received another call, this time from the corporate headquarters of the dealership chain. The regional manager himself was on the line, his tone unusually polite. "Ms. Johnson, I understand there's been an issue regarding your recent visit to one of our locations," he began cautiously. "We deeply regret any inconvenience caused and would like to address this matter immediately." Maya stayed calm, though inside she felt a mix of emotions, anger, satisfaction, and a hint of disbelief. She recounted the entire incident step by step, refusing to soften the truth. When she finished, there was silence on the other end of the line. Finally, the manager spoke again. "I assure you, this is not reflective of our values as a company. We will investigate thoroughly and ensure that such behavior does not happen again." Though his words sounded sincere, Maya wasn't naive enough to trust them blindly. She thanked him politely, but made it clear that she expected action, not just empty promises. Before hanging up, she added, "I've already contacted an attorney and my story is being covered by the media, so I hope you understand how serious this is." After the call ended, Maya sat back, letting the weight of the situation sink in. In less than 24 hours, she'd gone from feeling powerless and humiliated to becoming a symbol of resistance against systemic bias. Her kids noticed the change in her demeanor too. When she walked into the living room, her youngest looked up and asked, "Mom, are you okay now?" She smiled, sitting down beside him. "Yeah, buddy, I'm okay, and we're going to make sure other families don't have to feel the way we did." As the day wore on, the support kept pouring in. Messages from strangers filled her inbox, many of them thanking her for speaking up. One woman wrote, "I went through something similar last year, but I didn't know what to do. Reading your story gave me hope." Another person commented, "Your bravery is inspiring. Keep fighting, we're all behind you." Even local activists started reaching out, offering to organize protests outside the dealership if needed. While Maya appreciated the offer, she knew the power of her story lay in exposing the truth rather than escalating tensions unnecessarily. Still, knowing she had backup gave her strength. By evening, the dealership had released a public statement, acknowledging the incident. It was vague and carefully worded, but it admitted fault and promised to review internal policies to prevent future occurrences. Maya read it aloud to her sister, who rolled her eyes over the phone. "That's damage control," she said bluntly. "They're scared because people are watching. Good, let them sweat." Despite the progress, Maya knew this was only the beginning. The apology was nice, but it wasn't enough. She wanted accountability, real changes that would protect others from facing the same mistreatment. With her attorney's guidance, she prepared to negotiate terms that went beyond just compensation. She demanded diversity training for employees, partnerships with organizations supporting underrepresented communities, and transparent reporting on hiring practices moving forward. Her children watched her closely during this time, soaking in her resilience. Her daughter proudly told her friends at school, "My mom's teaching people how to treat everyone fairly." Even her son, still young and innocent, seemed to grasp the importance of standing up for oneself. He hugged her tightly one night and whispered, "You're my hero, Mom." As the week drew to a close, Maya reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. What started as a humiliating experience had turned into a catalyst for growth, not just for her family, but for countless others who might benefit from her courage. She realized that sometimes the hardest moments in life can lead to the most meaningful opportunities. And for the first time since leaving the dealership, Maya allowed herself to feel hopeful about what lay ahead. The days following the dealership's public apology were a whirlwind for Maya. Her story had captured the attention of not just her community, but people across the country. It was surreal to see how something so personal had become a national conversation. Every morning she woke up to find her phone buzzing with messages from strangers who thanked her for speaking out. Some shared their own painful experiences of being treated unfairly because of their race or background. Others simply offered words of encouragement, telling her she was brave and strong. But it wasn't all positive. There were also critics, people who tried to downplay what happened or accuse her of exaggerating. A few even suggested she was seeking attention or money. At first, these comments stung. Maya spent hours reading through hateful remarks, feeling the weight of judgment that came with stepping into the spotlight. But then her sister reminded her of something important. You can't control what other people say. All you can do is stay true to your purpose. That advice stuck with her. Instead of letting negativity bring her down, Maya focused on the bigger picture, the reason she decided to share her story in the first place. She wanted justice, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever walked into a dealership, or any business, and been made to feel unwelcome because of who they were. Her attorney called regularly to update her on the progress of the case. He explained that the dealership was scrambling to repair its damaged reputation. Behind closed doors, executives were holding emergency meetings trying to figure out how to handle the backlash. Their fear worked in Maya's favor. For once, the power dynamic had shifted. They couldn't ignore her anymore. One afternoon, while her kids were at school, Maya sat down to prepare for another round of negotiations. This time, she wouldn't settle for vague promises or empty gestures. With her attorney's guidance, she drafted a list of demands that went beyond financial compensation. She insisted on concrete actions that would create lasting change. Diversity training. Every employee at the dealership, from sales staff to managers, would undergo mandatory training on recognizing and addressing racial bias. Community partnerships. The company would pledge $100,000 to local organizations working to uplift marginalized communities. Transparent reporting. Moving forward, the dealership would publicly report on its hiring practices and customer satisfaction rates, ensuring accountability, a personal apology. Not just a generic statement, but a sincere acknowledgement of the harm caused to her and her family. When Maya reviewed the list, she felt a surge of pride. These weren't just demands, they were steps toward creating a world where no one else would have to endure what she did. She sent the document to her attorney, who promised to present it during the next meeting with the dealership's legal team. Meanwhile, the media coverage continued to grow. CNN aired a segment featuring Maya's story, highlighting the systemic issues of discrimination in industries like automotive sales. The producer framed it as more than just an isolated incident. It was part of a larger pattern affecting countless families. Clips from the interview showed Maya speaking calmly yet passionately about her experience. When asked why she chose to speak out, she replied, "Because silence only makes things worse. If we don't talk about these problems, nothing will ever change." The segment aired during prime time, reaching millions of viewers. Afterward, Maya's phone lit up with calls and texts from friends, family, and even strangers congratulating her. One message stood out. A woman wrote, "I've never seen someone stand up like this before. You're changing the game for all of us." Reading those words brought tears to Maya's eyes. She realized her fight wasn't just about getting justice for herself. It was about inspiring others to believe they could make a difference too. As the pressure mounted, the dealership caved. Representatives reached out again, this time with a different tone. Gone was the defensive posturing. Instead, there was genuine urgency in their voice. During a video conference call, the regional manager apologized directly to Maya, acknowledging the pain his employees had caused. He assured her that the company was committed to making meaningful changes, starting immediately. Maya listened carefully, weighing his words against his actions. While the apology sounded sincere, she knew better than to trust promises without guarantees. That's when her attorney stepped in, presenting the list of demands Maya had prepared. The room fell silent as the dealership's lawyers reviewed the document. Finally, after some back-and-forth discussion, they agreed to meet every single one of her requests. It was a victory, but Maya didn't celebrate just yet. She understood that real change takes time. Still, she allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. Sitting alone in her living room later that evening, she replayed the events of the past week in her mind. From the humiliation of being kicked out of the dealership to standing firm in the face of adversity, She had come so far. And now, thanks to her courage, others might benefit too. Her children came home shortly afterward, bursting through the door with laughter and energy. They didn't fully grasp the magnitude of what had happened, but they sensed their mom was happy. Her youngest ran up to her, throwing his arms around her waist. "Mom, are we heroes now?" he asked innocently. Maya chuckled, hugging him close. "Not heroes," she said softly. "Just people doing what's right." Over dinner, she shared bits of the news with them, keeping it simple. "We stood up for ourselves, and the dealership said sorry," she explained. "They're going to try harder to treat everyone fairly from now on." Her daughter smiled proudly, saying, "That's awesome, Mom." Later that night, as Maya tucked her kids into bed, she felt a deep sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she knew she'd planted seeds of change. And sometimes, that's all it takes. One person deciding to take a stand, one voice refusing to stay silent. As she turned off the light and closed her bedroom door, Maya whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." The weeks that followed the dealership's agreement to Maya's demands felt like a mix of triumph and reflection. For the first time in what seemed like forever, Maya allowed herself to breathe a little easier. The weight of the ordeal had lifted, but it wasn't completely gone. It had transformed into something else. Now, instead of carrying anger or humiliation, she carried a sense of purpose. She realized her fight wasn't just about getting an apology or even a new car. It was about proving that standing up for yourself could lead to real change. One morning, as she sipped her coffee and scrolled through her phone, Maya noticed something incredible. Social media posts about her story were still flooding in, but now they weren't just focused on her experience. They were highlighting other people's victories. A young man from Texas shared how he'd walked into a dealership after reading about Maya and left with a fair deal on a truck. "I thought about backing down when I saw the price tag," he wrote. "But then I remembered Maya's courage. So I stood my ground, and guess what? They listened." Another woman posted a video of herself at a local car lot, explaining how she used Maya's story to negotiate better terms for her family vehicle. "If Maya can do it," she said with a smile, "so can we." These stories filled Maya with hope. What started as one person's struggle had sparked a movement, a ripple effect of empowerment spreading across communities. But the changes didn't stop there. The dealership kept its promises, rolling out diversity training programs for all employees within weeks. Flyers advertising the initiative appeared in break rooms and offices, emphasizing the importance of treating every customer with respect, regardless of their background. Managers were required to attend workshops led by experts in racial equity, learning how unconscious biases could shape interactions in harmful ways. For Maya, seeing these efforts unfold gave her a small measure of satisfaction. It wasn't perfect. She knew true progress would take years, but it was a start. More importantly, the company announced its $100,000 pledge to local organizations supporting minority entrepreneurship. This donation went toward funding scholarships, mentorship programs, and business grants for underrepresented groups. News outlets covered the announcement, praising the dealership for taking meaningful action rather than offering empty platitudes. As part of the settlement, Maya also negotiated a brand new car for her family. Not the sedan she'd originally picked out, but an upgraded luxury model. When the dealership delivered it to her house, she couldn't help but laugh at the irony. Just weeks ago, they'd tried to turn her away, doubting her ability to afford anything. Now, here they were, handing over keys to a car far nicer than the one she'd initially dreamed of owning. Her kids erupted in cheers when they saw the shiny vehicle parked in their driveway. Her youngest climbed into the back seat, pretending to drive while his siblings giggled beside him. Even though Maya appreciated the upgrade, the car itself wasn't the highlight for her. It was the symbolism behind it, the proof that perseverance pays off, that speaking up can lead to tangible results. With her newfound platform, Maya began attending community events, sharing her story with anyone who would listen. Local schools invited her to speak to students about resilience and the importance of standing up against injustice. At first, public speaking made her nervous. She worried about saying the wrong thing or coming across as too emotional. But each time she stepped onto a stage or sat down for an interview, she reminded herself why she was there, to inspire others to find their voice. One evening, after a particularly moving talk at a neighborhood center, a teenage girl approached Maya, with tears in her eyes. "I've been bullied at school because of my skin color," the girl confessed. "I didn't think anyone cared until I heard your story. You showed me that it's okay to fight back." Maya hugged her tightly, feeling a lump rise in her throat. "You're stronger than you think," she whispered. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her advocacy extended beyond speeches and interviews. Maya joined forces with grassroots organizations working to combat systemic racism in various industries. Together, they drafted petitions calling for stricter regulations against discriminatory practices. Activists pointed to her case as evidence that unfair treatment wasn't isolated. It was widespread, affecting countless individuals daily. Media coverage of her journey continued, with CNN releasing a follow-up segment highlighting the impact of her actions. Producers interviewed not only Maya, but also customers who benefited from the dealership's reforms. One man recounted how a salesperson went out of their way to explain financing options clearly, ensuring he understood every detail before signing. Paperwork. "This never would have happened before," he said. "Things are different now." Despite the positive outcomes, Maya remained grounded. She knew the fight for equality was far from over. Discrimination wasn't limited to car dealerships. It existed in schools, workplaces, healthcare systems, and countless other areas of life. Still, she took pride in knowing she'd chipped away at one piece of the problem. Her story served as a reminder that ordinary people could create extraordinary change. At home, her children watched her transformation with admiration. They saw their mom not just as a caregiver but as a leader, someone who refused to back down when faced with adversity. Her daughter started writing essays for school about bravery and fairness, inspired by her mother's example. Her son proudly told his classmates, "My mom changed the rules for everyone." Late one night, as Maya tucked her youngest into bed, he asked her a question that caught her off guard. "Mom, does this mean bad people won't be mean anymore?" She paused, thinking carefully about her answer. Finally, she replied, "Not everyone will change, sweetheart. But if we keep standing up for what's right, maybe fewer people will get hurt. And that's worth fighting for." As she turned off the light and closed his bedroom door, Maya felt a renewed sense of determination. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but she was ready to face whatever came next. After all, she'd already proven that one voice, one brave decision could make a world of difference. Months had passed since the day Maya walked out of that dealership feeling humiliated and defeated. Now, as she pulled into her driveway in her new car, a sleek luxury model she never imagined owning, she couldn't help but smile. The journey from that painful moment to where she stood now felt like a lifetime ago. Her kids tumbled out of the car, laughing and racing toward the front door. Life had settled into a rhythm again, but it wasn't the same old routine. Something inside Maya had shifted. She carried herself differently now, with confidence, purpose, and a quiet strength. Every morning as she drove her children to school or headed to work at the hospital, Maya noticed the subtle changes around her. People treated her differently, not just because of the shiny car she drove, but because they'd heard her story. Neighbors who once exchanged polite nods now stopped to chat, sharing how inspired they were by her courage. Co-workers at the hospital approached her during breaks asking for advice on handling tough situations. Even strangers recognized her sometimes, stopping her in grocery stores or parking lots to thank her for speaking up. It was humbling, really. Maya never imagined her life would take this turn. She didn't set out to become an advocate or a symbol of change. All she wanted was fairness for herself and her family. But somewhere along the way, her fight became about more than just one incident. It became a beacon of hope for others who felt powerless against injustice. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Maya decided to visit the same dealership where everything had started. She hadn't planned to go back, it wasn't something she thought she'd ever do, but curiosity got the better of her. As she parked her car near the entrance, she took a deep breath. For a moment, memories of that humiliating day flooded back, the dismissive stares, the cold tone of the loan officer, the security guards looming over her. But then she reminded herself of how far she'd come since then. This time she wasn't walking in as someone desperate to prove herself. She was walking in as someone who had already won. The atmosphere inside the showroom was different now. Gone were the tense glances and uncomfortable silences. Instead, salespeople greeted customers warmly, no matter how they looked or what they wore. Maya noticed posters on the walls promoting diversity and inclusion, alongside flyers advertising partnerships with local organizations supporting underrepresented communities. When a young man approached her asking if he could assist her, Maya smiled politely and said, "No, I'm just browsing." She wandered through the rows of cars, taking it all in. Near the front window, she spotted a sign she hadn't expected to see: Equal Opportunity Employer. All are welcome here. Her heart swelled with a mix of emotions: pride, relief, and even a touch of sadness. Pride because she'd played a role in making this happen. Relief because maybe other families wouldn't face the same mistreatment she did. And sadness because it shouldn't have taken so much effort to remind people of basic human decency. As she stood there lost in thought, a familiar voice broke the silence. It was the regional manager, the same man who had personally apologized to her during their negotiations. He looked surprised to see her but quickly recovered, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. "Ms. Johnson," he said warmly. "It's good to see you again." Maya shook his hand, meeting his gaze steadily. "I just wanted to check in," she said simply. "See how things are going." The manager nodded, his expression serious. "We've made a lot of changes thanks to your input. Our employees are undergoing regular training, and we're working hard to rebuild trust with the community. It's been eye-opening, to say the least." Maya appreciated his honesty. She could tell he meant what he said, that the company was genuinely trying to improve. Still, she knew lasting change required constant vigilance. "Keep at it," she told him firmly. "Don't let this just be a phase. Real progress takes time." He promised her they wouldn't stop. As she left the dealership, Maya felt a sense of closure wash over her. The place that once represented rejection and humiliation now symbolized growth and resilience. It wasn't perfect, but it was moving in the right direction. Back home, Maya spent the evening reflecting on everything that had happened. Her kids were busy playing outside, their laughter filling the air. Watching them, she realized how much her actions had shaped their worldview. They saw her stand up for herself and demand respect, and now they were learning to carry that same spirit in their own lives. Her daughter came inside holding a drawing she'd made at school, a picture of a strong woman surrounded by cheering crowds. "This is you, Mom," she said proudly. Maya hugged her tightly, fighting back tears. "Thank you, sweetheart," she whispered. In that moment, she understood the true power of her journey. It wasn't just about changing policies or holding companies accountable. It was about showing her children, and everyone else watching, that one person's voice could make waves big enough to reach the shore. That night, as she lay in bed, Maya replayed the past few months in her mind. From the frustration of being turned away to the triumph of seeing real change, every step had taught her something valuable. She learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. She learned that standing up for yourself doesn't mean doing it alone. There's strength in community and solidarity, and most importantly, she learned that justice isn't a destination, it's a continuous effort. Her phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. It was a message from her sister. "You've inspired so many people. Don't forget to take care of yourself too." Maya smiled, typing back a quick reply. "I will. Thanks for reminding me." As she drifted off to sleep, Maya felt at peace. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she was ready. She'd proven to herself and the world that speaking up mattered, that one brave act could spark a chain reaction of positive change. And while the fight for equality was far from over, She knew she'd done her part to push it forward. For now, that was enough.